Good morning, my magnificent ones. Sue Paulson here, your magnificence mentor. Welcome to Tea with Sue. Today, I thought it would be fun to explore what senses teach us, both our outer senses and our inner senses. So, of course, we're all familiar with the five outer senses: the taste, touch, smell, hearing. What's the other one? Taste, touch, smell, hearing, seeing. Oh, seeing. Hello. Duh. I had one of those little brain fart moments there. Sorry about that. All right, those five senses. So those are the senses that are the most important to us when we're first born, right? Because that's the way we can explore our world. We don't have a great way of knowing what that's all about, other than through what we can feel with our fingers, what we can, so the touch, the sounds that we hear, the voices of our parents, for example, and other loved ones, and the noises going on around us, the taste of mother's milk or some other nourishment, the scent of the air, and of course what we see, what we notice in our immediate vicinity. So that's how we begin to learn about our world when we first arrive. And of course we depend on those five senses throughout our lives. I mean, it's interesting that if a person loses a sense or isn't born with one of those senses, the other four will pick up the slack. And so I've understood that people who cannot see, their hearing becomes hypersensitive, and they learn by touch and so on. So it's pretty fascinating to me how that all works. Then, of course, we have the inner senses that signal information or give us something to go by, but it's less obvious. Now, obviously, the inner sense of hunger is one of the most pronounced, I would guess, and that feeling of tiredness, so that we know it's time to rest or go to sleep. Those are really connected to our physical well-being and emotional and so on. There's a couple of others that I would like to just chat about, and of course one of them is we can call it a gut feeling. So our whole bodies are involved, both all of our organs, our skin, everything is involved in communicating when we're in the world. So there's no parts left out. Everything has something to tell us if we listen. Oftentimes we're a little bit oblivious to what it is that's going on around us and inside of us, and so we don't pay attention. Well, sometimes that's to our detriment. Sometimes that causes a real problem. So let's go back to inner senses for a minute. So we have this feeling that we could call the gut feeling, this sense of unease. Well, our digestion doesn't just relate to digesting the food that comes into our bodies, the liquids and so on. It's not just about that, but we digest words we hear from other people or words we say to ourselves. We digest experiences in processing and maybe trying to make sense of them, especially if it's something that we haven't encountered before. So if we're approaching a situation and we have an uneasy feeling in our gut, and it starts to roil and tumble a little bit, it's important to pay attention to that and say, oh, what is that? What's going on here? What's new? What's different? What may be scary? What's odd? I dealt with this all the time when I used to teach public speaking, because fear is such a big factor for everybody. Let's face it. Some have less fear than others, but basically the idea of speaking in front of an audience of probably more than 2 or 3 people is scary for people. And so it's still on the top 5 things I think that people are most afraid of. Well, where does it hit? For some people, it hits right in the gut. They feel as if whatever contents are there are just going to empty themselves right out, because the nausea is there. There's this constriction in the throat that travels all the way down into the stomach. So that's one indication that something new is going on, and you may or may not like it. And of course, our ego of survival says, whoa, that's pretty scary. I don't know if you should go there or not. Well, when it comes to public speaking, most people that I've worked with have discovered that once the fear is faced, and once you actually do it, you speak in public and you don't die from it. I mean, that's a lot of what people think. Oh no, I'm going to die if I get up there. I haven't noticed anybody doing that, and I never had anybody keel over on me. And so I even never had anybody faint. So even though it feels as if, then there it is. So some people it hits in the gut, some it hits in the heart. So our hearts have a huge role in how we feel about things and what's going on in our world. So maybe my heart starts to pound at the idea of just, getting up there. And a whole variety, knocking knees and shaking and all those kinds of things. You see people sitting there tapping their feet or their hands drumming on something. Well, the body tells us, the body signals what's going on inside of us. And what's really fascinating to me is when we pay attention to what that's all about, then that's when we have the opportunity to do something about it, to make it easier or not go there or whatever. We can make a choice based on what our bodies are telling us. So, and a lot of it comes from these inner senses. So when I think of, for example, when I got married the first time, I was very, very young, and it was only a little over a year after my mom had died. I was probably still grieving and in shock, but this young man seemed to really be into me. And so and in those days, well, if you were into each other, and the only course of action was to get married. So I figured, all right, well, that's what I'll do. And my poor dad and my grandmother, they're both like, oh, what are you doing? You don't have to do this. And even his parents weren't all that thrilled about the idea of us getting married so young. And there was a part of me that wasn't sure either, because I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't have a clue of what life would be like, but I wanted to experience it. And of course I had these preconceived notions of what that was supposed to be like. And so I thought, well, that's the way I was raised. I'm female, and when I get to a certain age, then even if I'm working, well, it's a good idea to get married, find a man who can look after you. Well, that didn't work out so well. But you know what? That 8.5 years that we had together taught me a lot. It also taught me about my preferences. I liked this, but I didn't like that. I wanted this, but I didn't want that. So it began this course of introspection, I guess, that really helped me to kind of feel my way along in life. Well, that felt good, that didn't. I liked that, I didn't like that. And that's how we grow, right? Is way we get a series of events coming into our lives, and we have a feeling about those pending events. And then, of course, the choice comes, am I in or out? Does this fit for me or does it not? Do I want to go there or do I want to go somewhere else? So we always have these choices. Now, obviously, if my gut is saying to me, ooh, danger, 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 there's probably a good reason for that. And I need to pay attention to that. Most of the time I did. I would say, whoa, okay, that, don't go there. That wouldn't be a good idea. Other times I ignored the danger signals. Oh no, I'm sure it'll be all right. I'm sure. And I talked myself into doing it despite my whole body and being saying, Sue, I don't, you know better than that. That's not such a good idea. But I'd test it out anyway. Well, I must have had guardian angels around me because I was very fortunate that I didn't get myself into too much hot water. Oh, not to say that there weren't some experiences that just kind of, oh, I knew that wasn't a good idea, and look at what happened. And then I really learned. Then I knew to stay clear. But what does that do? Really, what that does, if we take the judgment out of it, because there's no point when we make what we consider later to be a wrong turn or a choice that did not work out the way we wanted. Well, beating ourselves up for it has no purpose, really. Where there's purpose is to say, well, okay, what did I learn from that? What is it that taught me, that experience taught me about myself? Like, do I be more cautious, or do I just set certain boundaries? Like, how do I deal with what's in front of me now? So a certain amount of introspection, I found, well, I'm into introspection big time. I'm always examining things and analyzing after the fact, or sometimes before the fact. Okay, what would that be like if I did that? Well, I've lived long enough that I usually have some kind of experience that will give me information to decide, yeah, no, I don't think I'm going to do that. Or, oh yeah, that'd be fun to try. Okay. And so that's helpful. But when we're young, we don't have that much experience. So it is a real experiment. That is life. It's a real experiment where we get out there and we try some things on. But we're not without tools when we do that. And I think as we pay more and more attention, especially to those inner senses that send the signals, because of course we do pick up from other people what's going on with them. And if we're consciously aware of it and we consciously school ourselves to pay closer and closer and closer attention to the signals that they're giving off, whether it's a wave of energy that might be super positive or super negative, or whether it's something that they say or the way they say something, their tone of voice, whatever. That's why I'm not that fond of texting. Here's just a little side note here. I'm not that fond of texting because you can't actually get a sense of the tone that the person is giving you through a text, because they're just words. And okay could be, somebody types okay, it could be okay, or it could be okay, or it could be okay. Well, you don't know. And for me, when somebody says okay, then I'm wondering, are they really all right with that? Because I didn't hear what they said. So anyway, that's my thing. And that's why I'm, as a communication device, I'm not that fond of texting, other than to say, I'm going to be 5 minutes late, or could you give me a call, or whatever. I like the verbal for sure, and preferably face to face if I can. So, which is why I love video and I'm on Zoom a lot, because at least when you can see each other, you can pick up more of those clues. But even if you can't see each other, have any of you ever experienced into your heart and mind comes the image of a loved one, and it feels as if something's off with them? So you pick up the phone and say, I was just thinking about you, and is everything okay? And then you come to find out that something bad has happened to them, and you just knew it. Well, maybe you were thousands of miles away, but the communication was there because you're linked, because you're linked anatomically and energetically and so on. And so sometimes I call that my Spidey senses, right? The old Spider-Man thing, that something's tingling, something's vibrating, something's wanting me to pay attention. So when I pay attention, invariably there was something to that. Something was not quite in sync with what I needed it to be or what I thought it was. And so I explored it further. So the other inner sense that's kind of fun is the when you get goosebumps. So maybe somebody's telling you a particularly poignant story, a meaningful story, and you get these goosebumps. And some people that I know call them God bumps. Well, what are those? Well, often they're a resonance with what the person is saying. Like there's a truth that's being explained to you or given to you that enables you to have that, oh wow, do I connect with that? And it gives you something to kind of grab hold of, and you literally feel the truth of it in the skin. Well, the skin is the largest organ of the body, and it's highly, highly sensitive in so many ways. So I know, for example, when I'm particularly fussed about something that's going on that I don't quite know what it is, and I'm not too sure how to deal with, sometimes I get a rash because I'm overhyped or overamped, or I'm edgy about something. And so where does it show up? It shows up in the skin. Well, if I just discount it and say, oh, well, I have a rash, and oh, maybe it'll go away, or maybe I'll go to the doctor and get a cream for it, or whatever I decide to do, that's one way of dealing with it. Or the other way of dealing with it is to say, okay, what skin, what's going on here? What are you trying to communicate to me? What, and then I start exploring, well, what's been going on in my life lately? What's different than before? And usually I can pinpoint and say, oh, okay, I was really nervous about this or that or the other thing. And then I do what I can to soothe myself and calm myself down. And sure enough, the rash goes away. So we don't give enough credit to how big a role I think our skin plays in communicating to us what's working or not working in our lives. So that's another part of the inner senses. Of course, you can get goosebumps from being scared. And which is a really good signal for us, because unless it's a scary movie that we're watching, then we have this feeling of danger, and you get all, the hairs on the back of your neck rise up and so on. I remember a good friend telling me of a scenario one time. He was dirt biking in the forested area and stopped at this stream to have a drink of water. And as he's bending down, the hairs on the back of his neck rose up. And he tells me that he looks up and he's staring into the face of this cougar who's a short distance away across this creek. Well, he's going, oh boy, now what do I do? Fortunately, he knew enough he just cautiously backed away, climbed on his bike, and as soon as he revved the bike, and the roar of the engine just scared the cougar, and off he went. But there's the danger, right? It tells us. So if we're aware of our surroundings, so it helps to not be oblivious. It really helps to tune into what's going on around you. I see so many people who are they've got earbuds in, and they're just they seem often in their own little world. And I've watched people cross the street in front of me. I'm stopped so they can cross. They don't even look up to notice that I'm there. And I'm going, well, did they even see me? Do they even really know that I'm here? And so it's important to pay attention to your surroundings and say, well, what did I just hear? Or I don't know if you've been startled, but I sure have of a siren that starts just out of nowhere. And I'm going, whoa. And so then I'm looking frantically if I'm driving, I'm looking in my through the windshield, the rear view mirror, the side mirrors. I'm turning my head. Where's that siren coming from? Because it's a signal that there's probably something I may need to do. If an ambulance is coming up behind me, or a fire truck, then I need to do what I can to get out of the way. So there's just all of these signals that alert us in our lives to making choices, taking actions, all of those kinds of things. We want to pay attention to them. We want to notice, because they're all for our benefit in some way, shape, or form. And now, I mean, there's times when we can allow some of those senses to go on overdrive, and then we're so overly stimulated or fraught with worry or something like that it isn't good for us, that it's a signal to us that, whoa, we need to just dial it down and dial it down and dial it down. And that's where, when we choose to do things like meditation, or we go into the stillness of nature and just sit for a little bit, or focus on a candle or something like that, then it enables us to just take those senses and say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. So some soothing needs to go on. And particularly if you've been in a situation with someone else where the level of anger has built and built and built, or frustration, or whatever it is that's causing a miscommunication, or a situation that could get nasty. Well, that's the time to really decide if it's a good place to just back away and diffuse the situation and get out of there, so that you can deal with it differently later. So and our bodies will tell us this. Our bodies will tell us, whoa, if we pay attention. It's when so it isn't about controlling our emotions that come from the sensations that we're feeling. It's about mastering them. It's about saying, whoa, I know that I get a little overamped when this happens. When this person says this to me, it triggers me and I'm off. Oh, well, does that support me in my well-being and my quest for heaven on earth? Well, not really. It kind of feels like hell when that happens. Well, then what could I do? Because it's all about us, right? You're the only one that can make the difference in your life to live it as heaven on earth, or live it as hell on earth. So it's up to you, and it's up to me to do that for me. So you get to choose. And sometimes we make a choice and we go, oh, why did I choose that? Oh, that didn't work out. That was the worst choice I could have made. Well, guess what? You get to choose again. And I'm always writing notes to myself, note to self, don't do that way again. And avoid that at all costs. So life is really quite fascinating to me. And we have the tools. We have the tools. I mean, life is for us if we allow it to be. And we have this vehicle called a body, this sacred temple that can guide us as we go. We just need to, sometimes we need to step away from the way we were brought up, test it out and say, is that really true for me? Because some of the ways I was brought up do not fit for me right here, right now. In fact, it was the wrong information, done with good intention, no doubt, but it didn't fit for me. And so I've spent a lot of years unwinding some of that information and saying, yeah, I think we're gonna rewind this tape, and we're gonna, put in a new program here. We're going to refresh the data and have this play differently now, because the way I learned it was not effective for me, or it doesn't work anymore. And so again, we do this introspection to go through that. So that's what I wanted to play with you today about. So this week, I really encourage you to open up to your senses, both your outer senses and your inner senses. Get more enjoyment out of what you're touching, what you're tasting, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling. Do that. And I mean, my sniffer works pretty good. So maybe for you, that first sniff of coffee in the morning is what helps you come alive. Maybe it's roses in your rose garden. Whatever it is, engage all of those outer senses and appreciate what they bring you even more, because there's a lot to be appreciated out there in the world, even when things are in a mess, which they certainly are in all parts of the world. Things are in somewhat of a mess in a variety of ways. Nonetheless, the birds are still chirping, the flowers are blooming, the trees, well, here they have some brilliant red and orange and yellow leaves right now, but they're still here, so that's good. And the evergreens are still green all year long. The senses are there. And then your inner senses, work with them, sharpen them, learn ways to have them speak to you even louder. They will if you listen. So it's about tuning inside as well as allowing the outer senses to work. If you're enjoying Tea with Sue, I really invite you to subscribe to my channel. You can also download the Magnificence Mentor. It's a free app. On there are all the Tea with Sue episodes. This is episode number 91, if you can believe it. And I sometimes have trouble believing it, but there it is. And so all of them are on my app, as well as on the YouTube channel. And just explore. If you want to become a member of the app, that opens up more content that is just for members. It's a free membership. In the meantime, take the best care, pay attention to those senses, and have a glorious week.